rather than have these separate regulations, is to combine these two documents. Sometimes there's conflicts, and to work out those conflicts so the developer understands clearly what he needs to construct, or what is the requirements. So that was the thinking, I think, in 2013 was, it was already developed when I kind of came on to the Planning Commission. And now we've updated it since I've been on the Planning Commission. So
Has it changed since the flood of 16 in years, or is it all the
no,
same?
no. We're happy with that, the requirements right now, so.
I like the idea of everything being unified, because I think it's so confusing if you have parish regulations and city regulations.
Yeah.
So if you have the same terminology, would definitely
I
be an
agree,
advantage.
and I think all of those things are the things that we are
Right.
need to be looking at.
All the
Sewage,
classifications.
drainage, elevation, floodplain,
Mhm.
land development, all of those things. So I guess the question, and Gerald, you kind of said that, we already have some things in existence, but I know the council has been discussing, that we need to, the ordinance committee, and we need to be looking at some other things, updating things. So I don't know if what we're working with at the council level, the parish level, is this similar to that? Or do we need to look at that and
Well, all those
compare
things
them?
need to be looked at it, but from day one, this committee took the three priorities, the three phases. One was drainage, and of course, the zoning and land use restrictions, and infrastructure, and roads being the most important of all infrastructure. We worked on that. We haven't worked on sewer yet. And that's part of the master plan we'll get to maybe later on, but yeah, we need to get to that, but,
I would like to interject. When I worked for the city of Baton Rouge during the term of Mayor Pat Green, we had what they called the Horizon Plan. That was their master land use plan. That had many elements like transportation, wastewater, community facilities, future land use, just a myriad of, each one of those was a separate document, and all put together, that became the master land use plan.
And was that a good
Yes.
way to proceed?
Yes. So each one, like you're working on the master drainage system, master transportation, all those are elements of a master land use plan. Now zoning puts specific requirements on a particular piece of property, So the definition, I wrote this definition down, so I'd like to just read it to you. Zoning, it delineates a specific area or district within which regulations and requirements uniformly govern the use, placement, spacing, size of land needed, in building size. Like when you're dealing with a subdivision, you have certain size lots, certain size houses can be placed on those lots. That's zoning. And yet your master land use plan may say this area is residential, but it doesn't really get into the requirements for that particular type of residential establishment.
I got a question. If anybody, let's say, one of us would come to the city of Walker and we're interested in buying some land on Florida Boulevard or wherever in the city, and we want to build something on Florida Boulevard that could be residential or commercial, what are the steps that we would have to go through to get approval by your
All right.
commission?
Okay, within the city of Walker, there's an official zoning map, where all the area within the city has a particular zoning designation. Let's just say, Mr. Burns, this particular area is residential, but he wants to build a restaurant. Well, that's not compatible with that zoning, so he would have to have it rezoned. And there's a process that we have to go through a public hearing. It's advertised. There's a public hearing established. People can kind of come and oppositions or proponents for that particular piece of property. And then the commission votes either to rezone or to reject the request.
And you'd have.
So just because you want to build a restaurant, it's not an open door. Unless now, if that particular piece of property was commercial, there's no problem. It meets that classification. Then you have to meet the Unified Development Code regulations as regard to
Whatever you're gonna do.
parking and size
So
of
then you
building.
use that document.
You use your code of ordinances. Once you get approval to build a commercial or whatever, and
Yes.
you'd have to go before the planning zoning commission. How many members you have on that, Benny?
There's, I want to say 7 members.
7?
Yes.
But do you have to go before that committee if you meet the
No.
Yeah, you don't have
No.
to do that.
Only if you
If-
ask them for a
if-
rezoning.
Right.
Right, if you want a rezoning,
Right.
you have to go before it.
Right.
If it's properly zoned or the use that you want to develop, then you do not need to go to the city.
And the staff does that determination that it meets the regulations, explains the regulations to the purchaser in-house. That
Yeah.
doesn't go to any board or committee or anything.
That is correct, that's correct.
I can envision what you're doing, or the parish is gonna do, would mirror
Mhm.
what you're doing.
Mhm.
Basically, I would think so.
Is that different than what we do now in the parish?
Oh, yeah.
We don't have any
There is no zoning.
So there's, this first step isn't there.
Right.
No, we're not there yet. That's what zoning would, whoever the consulting person, engineers, it could be Mr. Jerry's firm, I don't know. He's an engineer, and, or someone like his company parish would, send out what, RFQs they call them, I believe, and then they would answer back and bid on how much it would cost and the scope of work and so forth. And then whoever the parish hires would start doing things like this.
So the
Implement.
benefit to the public would be, you know, when you come in, as you were describing, if you wanted to do something in Walker, you know, when you go in, you know, you talk to them and say, well, that property that you're interested in is R50, and this is what that means to
Right.
you.
That's correct.
And then they would guide them through what they're wanting to do, met that. So the benefit to the public for the parish to do that would be, again, you mentioned that earlier, so everybody knows
Yeah.
going in, you know, when you buy a piece of land or whatever, it's all clearly designated.
Yes, that's correct.
And if you need a change, there is that option there,
There's that process.
the process.
Yes.
So if it's not zoned commercial and I want to do a commercial, maybe Julie might want to do it. Julie's gonna do it. Okay. I'll pick on you a little while. Anyway, if one of us wanted to bring a commercial establishment in Walker and it's not zoned commercial, it's zoned residential, we'd come before. I noticed back on page 190, if y'all haven't looked at that, it gives you a detail of what R50 means, okay, residential. And I would assume that everybody that comes to get, would get a copy of this.
Right, and they may be a zoning classification, let's say it's R80, but someone wants to develop a subdivision, R50, you know,
Right.
wants smaller lots, that would require that to go before the planning commission. And
But they would get a copy of what we got right here, wouldn't they get that?
Yes, right.
Your commission, whoever they go to, would, you have a secretary, I assume,
Well,
the city or?
our chief building official is Nancy Kimball, and she kind of administers planning and zoning, and her assistant is Julie Forbes. So they kind of do the everyday operation. And so they administer the regulations, people come to them, they explain to them what's required, say, yes, we can do this, or no, you gotta go to planning and zoning. And there's an
Right.
application process, there's a fee and sign depending on what it is for that particular usage.
Right.
And then your planning and zoning committee is a recommendation to the council of,
Zoning is, yes, zoning is because that's a ordinance or regulation, so that has to have approval of the city council.
So
There
your-
would be a
Your
recommendation.
7-member committee would make a recommendation, yes or no?
Yes,
City council.
And
That's
then that
correct.
would go to the council, to your full council.
right,
Can they override you?
yes, yes.
Kind of like Livingston Parish, you know.
Well,
We in the planning commission, we get
they're
overruled quite
elected,
frequently.
they're elected officials, so,
so, but that is for a zoning ordinance
yes,
change.
it's for a
I mean,
zoning
a
change.
variance or a
Right.
rezoning. But then for planning, how do you all function?
We would say we would approve or reject. If we were approved, then they have to meet the specific requirements as they present the plans to the staff. If we said, yes, this is a residential subdivision to be developed in this particular area, we would approve that or reject it. But then the actual design of the subdivision, all that has to be approved by the city staff. And as I can appreciate it, there is no zoning regulations in Livingston Parish. Only the city of Denham Springs and the city of Walker has zoning regulations. The other municipalities, Springfield, Port Vincent, French Settlement, and maybe some other.
Albany, Livingston.
Albany,
Mhm.
Livingston, I don't think they have zoning regulation. I'm not exactly sure. So as you adopt, and you're kind of unique, like in East Baton Rouge Parish, it's a total parish. The planning commission is parish-wide. Here, we have the municipalities. So they may need to be kind of a transition zone between the municipal districts if you adopt the zoning. So if let's say Livingston Parish wanted to develop a piece of property adjacent to the city of Walker, in the city of Walker it's residential, but in Livingston it's industrial. That would be incompatible. They may need to be some approval of both agencies within half a mile or 1 mile or something like that.
Well, and I hadn't thought of this, but, you bring up such a good point that, we're thinking parish-wide, but we really need to engage the municipalities individually, and then I'm wondering, do we bring a recommendation to them similar to what this looks like and say this is what we're aiming at, and then ask them to then make their suggestions or recommendations, everyone being different? I mean, in Albany, they may want to do this or that, and in Springfield, they want to do something different. And then work out from those areas. That would be maybe a good starting point, and then working out from those areas into those open land, those parish areas.
And as you know, there's some specific things in Livingston Parish, like the landfill that's already the
Parish owned, or,
It's the parish owned,
Yeah.
so that's a public facility.
Right.
So you kind of start knowing certain elements that within the map. It's, Mr. Burns asked me about rural property, and I want to say in East Baton Rouge Parish, there's still a lot of what they call rural property, and then there's a zone called rural in East Baton Rouge Parish. And they kind of said if it's a residential development, it's compatible for residential development. But if you want to build a commercial or industrial, something that's not compatible with residential, then that has to be brought before the planning commission.
Right.
so everything blanket is kind of residential where it starts,
Yes,
accepted, but then out from there.
right.
So that's the way rural, that's what rural would be considered?
That's
Well,
what they consider rural.
we kinda tried-
Then there's none, what they call maybe rural, and they may be some sort of commercial area that may be non-conforming to that classification. And that exists until such time as that use is no longer being
I had
utilized.
asked him, if Walker had rural classification, he said no.
No.
But, they don't have it, but we hope to get some other speakers next month that you said you would help us with maybe, that does rural.
Yes,
Yeah.
Well, I
I'll be
think
happy.
EBR is very
And
interesting.
we can get a class, we can find out from them what rural is, but whoever the consultant is, I know I've seen a lot of this stuff. When Winston done it, they had a classification of rural. And I think I understand what it is, but they don't have it.
St. Tammany would be a good, I guess, another parish, or maybe West Feliciana, where you have a municipality and then you have predominantly a lot of rural area too, so.
Now, you had mentioned that someone had done St. Tammany Parish zoning.
Yes,
Was that a company, or
I believe that was a company, but I really don't know that.
was it the same company that done
Yeah.
West Feliciana?
I think so, I think so.
Could you help us get established with these people? Maybe they can come and help us next month, maybe? Especially on rural.
Well, I'd like to talk about something, I can't,
Well,
He didn't give me.
and backing up, I think it's important that, your Capital Region Planning Commission, that is an organization that's willing to come here and give you some guidance. They really have the planners. Years ago, before the emphasis was on the Metropolitan Planning Organization, they used to be more of assistance guiding parishes with sample zoning ordinance, zoning regulations, subdivision regulations. I have some of those documents so I think you need to reach out to the Capital Region Planning Commission.
We can do
And
that.
also,
is Mark Drennan there now?
Goebel's no longer there. he
it was
said.
R.J. Goebel
Yeah,
and
it
Mr.
was.
Huey Dugas.
Yeah.
You remember Mr. Goebel?
It's
that
Mr.
guy?
Jamie,
Hughes Dugas ain't there anymore, is he?
no.
Well, what we're doing, is, Mrs. Jerry, is a fact finding. That's all we're doing right now. We can't make decisions for what the council is gonna do. But we're trying to kind of gather facts as to how you do it and how somebody else does it. We've already heard from, one guy that was the previous planning director for Ascension Parish. But maybe we need to go back to them and get their, we're just gathering facts, Then one day we'll present it to these guys, And these guys right here in the audience, they hearing everything we hearing, so.
Well, I think Capital Region Planning Commission, CRPC, is a very good resource. That's
That would be a great resource for you.
maybe a real good
Yes.
place to start.
Yes.
So-
Well, back to square one, this name of this person that done St. Tammany, do you have that? Can you get it for me?
I could,
And I contact them, or,
yes. Yes.
After the
think I
meeting,
can-
maybe?
I really
Or I
don't.
can call you tomorrow. How about that?
Well, let me look it up.
Well,
And
tomorrow,
I'll
I'll call
email
you.
it
I'll
to
call
you.
you tomorrow on that.
He says
He's not giving you a break.
You mentioned a resource earlier, and I didn't get it written down, but you said rising or raising was a,
Yeah, under Pat Screen, Mayor
What is
Pat
that?
Screen.
Oh, the Horizon.
Horizon.
Plan.
Horizon. Like
Horizon plan.
Horizon.
okay.
Horizon.
I only caught the end of that.
Yeah, Horizon plan.
You wrote
That's-
rising too? That's
Yeah.
what I-
You know how Baton Rouge has like the green light, what's it
Yeah.
called now, green light something?
Right,
That's for sales tax.
right.
Well,
That-
well, it's for roads, it's,
Yeah.
it's, and so it's
They
it's
like
that
to
kind of
use
thing.
these names, you
Yeah.
know,
I
fancy.
just wanted to be able to research it, that's all.
Yeah, Horizon plan,
Horizon plan.
But that's probably 25 years
yes.
Well, that's what
And
I-
that's been probably updated
Right.
and maybe replaced
Right.
somewhat. Mr. Robert Dolis was the planning director at that time, and then Troy Bunch, Mr. Troy Bunch became after him, so.
I think it'd be important for us to look outside of Baton Rouge as well. I know we have a lot of resources here, the Baton Rouge master plan, but traveling a good bit, I know I'm a young guy, but I travel a good bit. And
Well-
I know there's places like Frisco, Texas, that have completely master planned that area. I mean, infrastructure all the way out, and it has grown exponentially in just the last 15 years. And it's a well planned out city. And I think, you know, there's a lot of new investment going in. Residential is clearly laid out, the transitional zones that he was speaking about
Well,
before.
and you know, something Baton Rouge did, which I'm sure you remember, Baton Rouge, you know, they took trips to Austin.
Yes.
And,
I was on some
Right, I
of those.
figured you might have been on some of those trips, you know, because that was a city that was comparable to Baton Rouge at one time, and then it, you know, really took off and did some great things. So the things that came out of that are some of the documents you're talking
Yes.
about. They came back and then implemented that, which goes hand in hand with what you're suggesting, is that, you know, we need to look at communities that are similar in size and,
And that's where I was getting
Right.
at, because Baton Rouge is already, when I
Right.
travel these other places, I look around, I'm like, wow, these places are really
Got it
nice.
going
You
on.
see it. When you go to, when I travel Baton Rouge, I don't say, wow, this was well
Yeah.
thought out.
Yeah.
But when I travel to Frisco, when I travel the suburbs of Atlanta, going through Duluth or Ringgold, Marietta, all the way around, you're like, it reminds you of the woodlands, it reminds you of the different areas that have been well thought out and well planned.
Yeah, signage is a big thing in some of these, where you'll see the signs just barely off the ground versus, you know, 40 feet high.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
the whole ambiance is
It's
different.
It's
you know,
what,
it's-
what do
in
you
St.
want the
Tammany,
parish to look like? What do you know, what's the feeling of the people? What do you
Look
want
at,
to
and what
do?
also brings the best economic growth and for our future and our children, and that's what we're, you know, not just what we personally would like to see, but it's just what is,
I do
What's-
think
what's
St.
great for
Tammany
the-
is a good thought, though, because, and what I was gonna ask earlier is in St. Tammany, because I don't know, but I know you have Covington, Mandeville, what else is in, Madisonville? Are there other, do they have the same, I was gonna ask if they had a similar makeup to the amount of little municipalities that we have, because I think that's important.
St. Tammany, probably.
You think that would be comparable to
Well-
that, what we have?
I know they have Folsom.
Yeah, and you also have a
They
lakefront,
got
you
Mandeville,
know,
they got a
So
big.
the waterways,
the waterways, you have the, you know, the waterway with Lake Maurepas,
Probably the
all that
better.
development.
I actually met,
Yeah, it sure really should be our next focus, really, St. Tammany.
I served on the Historic Commission, Historic Preservation Commission in Denham Springs, and we worked with St. Tammany and that area. They were very open to, you know, sharing their information on the historic side. So, you know, maybe something that we could reach out to.
I agree. Take advantage of people.
We don't
that's-
have to reinvent the wheel, do we?
Correctly.
And if you know somebody in some of those other towns, I mean, it's kind of like when we were kids, you used to write letters to do reports, to get information from towns. I don't know if anybody remembers that kind of projects, but maybe we could write them a letter and see if they'd help us.
Yeah, yeah. So the only thing I want to ask is, what do you see the challenges that we might face with taking on this huge undertaking?
I've lived here and understand, everyone's concerned about zoning. However, I think when they really understand it, that this can really protect their property. I know you had some issues with subdivisions and gravel pits adjacent to. A lot of those issues could be not a problem if you had zoning. And there's a way to do that, for the development, is if someone did want to build a gravel pit, they come before the planning commission, and if you all feel this is acceptable development, it's compatible, what's being proposed, the roads won't be damaged, they're taking care of all those issues, issues of drainage, noise, all that, then you approve it, so versus, as I can appreciate it right now, it's kind of open area right now.
So
That's exactly the problem.
First, if we could develop a list.
Classifications.
The classifications.
And I don't even know if you need to get into all those detailed classifications at this time, maybe just some general classifications.
Meaning residential, commercial, industrial,
Right,
rural.
yeah.
And
And then as you start getting into some of those, then you fine tune those definitions.
well, then you may
C1,
find
C-
in a municipality that they suggest,
Correct.
well, we're gonna need this or that.
And
So
I
then it
think-
may break down and create itself, it may generate its own
See,
information.
I think Ascension Parish, where you had the city of Gonzales, I think that's the only municipality, well, Sorrento, Gonzales,
Donaldsonville.
and Donaldsonville. And then there's communities, but they're not incorporated.
Right.
And see what they have. I think St. Tammany would be a good model for you with the lake frontage and all that, with some of the issues. Livingston is a big parish.
Yeah.
We're a big parish.
What I see, one of the challenges is that, it's not our property, it's the people already, it's not people coming in to buy new property, it's people's property.
Correct.
So people don't want you telling them what they can do.
Right.
And so that's the thing, it's like, working with the people, it has to be
Right.
a, combination thing. We have to work with the people that are already here, that own the property.
Well, and so if you start with those four, let's say, broad, descriptions, then again, handing it off then to French Settlement and Port Vincent and whatever, and then have them work on what fits in your area, rather than us coming in and saying, this is what you need to do.
That's right.
Yeah, it's definitely not a dictatorship.
No. Definitely
Yeah,
that's
it's
not
your
the
question.
plan.
Well, we don't know
Back-
what
back
they
to-
know.
Back to square one, this is really a fact-finding mission for us.
Right.
And a lot of the stuff on here, might be used by the parish or might not, like R50 lot line residential, and see, the parish don't allow that. Our code of ordinances does not allow that. So we can't take this verbatim and say, this is the way we're gonna do it.
Oh,
So this is and you can throw that out maybe, or you can include it. I don't know, but that's gonna be up to the parish. That's gonna be up to the
Or
parish.
if,
but
or if
we can-
someone wanted to come
we-
in and develop a zero.
Right,
lot,
we can study
then you
this,
would-
and then the parish can study it, and down the road, when we get a consultant to hire, then they'll look at all this, and they gonna have their own. I know Winston has their own, and I looked at it the other night, and what they sent to me years ago, I still have.
Yeah.
So I have all that. So theirs could be different from this, but this is strictly a fact finding. We're using your vast knowledge to help us a little bit further along, you see.
Do you
But,
think that you could work backwards a little bit?
what does that mean?
Like, you know, you're looking at the overall makeup of the parish, and you kind of say, okay, well, this subdivision is a large lot subdivision. So you would classify it as that R50,
Right.
you know, whatever it is, R60 or whatever. So you're almost kind of working backwards by what's already there, and then,
Well, that'd be
Kind of
where you
work.
have
The
the,
only
what we
thing-
call an existing land use
Well,
plan, that would identify those particular pieces of property.
and then,
And you could,
the only
you
thing,
could zone on that basis, based on the existing land uses,
the
kind
only
of fill in the
thing,
gaps, you
fill in
know?
the gaps.
Ms. Kay, the only thing that we have now is code of ordinances,
Right,
period, that regulates everything from single residence to apartments and subdivisions, with or without improvements, on and on and on. We already have that, but the thing that we're looking at is, where does that fit in? Right now, it's anywhere, everywhere. There's no
Right.
stopping nothing. It's
Right.
unbridled growth. You know, and
Right.
there's incompatible things being put against the next thing that's not compatible. So that's what land use restriction and zoning is gonna help us with.
And as you develop those pieces of property, there's studies like drainage impact, traffic impact, all those supporting, to support that particular development.
Infrastructure.
What will that, what will the impacts be if that development is allowed? You know,
Okay.
how are those going to be offset?
Okay.
So-
Are you, when you described like a subdivision and working backwards and all that, that would be outside of any of the municipalities?
right,
Okay.
right.
So if we were to begin with just a description of what residential could be, just a broad residential and commercial and rural and industrial. Let's just say it's those four things. And then we take that to the municipalities as our first step.
Right.
And then ask them, now then within the municipality, you might have a subdivision that has whatever.
Right.
And they could come back and say, look, we would like an R1 that is, you know, and they say lot size, whatever they want to describe it as.
Right,
And then, to me, that's a good starting point, and not out in the unincorporated areas or the
Right.
outside municipalities until we get those areas done first.
You would have
Right.
to ask all.
Because you have somebody to work with.
You would have to ask all the municipalities like Walker to give up their autonomy and what they do. I don't know that would happen.
No, I don't believe
It would
that's
be
I'm
what-
not saying
within.
that.
No, I don't think that's what
No,
they're
you would
saying.
work within it.
If you're gonna include all the municipalities and the parish in one zoning type.
No,
No, I'm
No,
talking about
that's-
the ones
that's
that
not
don't
what they-
have anything.
no.
Huh?
I'm talking about work with the municipalities that don't have anything. I'm not even talking about Walker or Denham at this
So
point.
Walker and Denham
Well,
stay like it
it's
is,
only,
Yeah, that's right.
pretty much.
well, right now, the only ones I think is Killian and Port Vincent is, they use the parish.
Okay,
No, they use the parish planning department right now to regulate growth in Port Vincent.
Right,
So it's already being done.
but
and
they
whatever-
have an organized group, like you have a mayor of Port Vincent and a
Yeah.
mayor of French
Alderman,
Settlement
Alderman.
and Albany and such as that. So you have someone that you can go to and say, look, this is what we'd like you to take up and talk to with your people and look at your boundaries and tell us how you'd like this to be
You're talking
there.
about the zoning aspect only.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Well, yeah, I can see that if that's what they want to do, but
And
I'm
then
talking.
after we get that
but I'm
done,
not-
we can
but
go
when you're talking-
outside.
But when you're talking about Walker, I don't think they're
No,
gonna.
I'm
give
not
up
talking
that.
about
No,
Walker.
no, they're not gonna do that.
No, I wasn't talking
I
about
don't see how you could do that, but you're right about Port Vincent and Killian, and that's the only one that I know.
Well, what about Albany,
Albany,
Springfield,
Springfield,
Holden,
Livingston.
Livingston,
Well, I
French
don't know,
Settlement?
They all got their own zoning,
Well, okay,
I think they all do.
Do they?
Livingston, yeah.
okay. I don't know.
Springfield, Albany, well, the mayor's not here, but, I think they do.
Okay.
Uh,
Well, I
Yeah, that'd
think-
be a good question to
I think-
ask them.
I think as this board, we could gather that information. We
Yeah.
could go to
Just
them and get
ask
that
them if they-
information.
do you
Just
have-
like we have his, we get everybody else's, get
Right.
Denham's, get
Well,
everybody's.
I guess tonight we're doing some fact finding, and the next week, I hope you get somebody else, some other parish that's done this, and get another perspective of how they do that.
Do you all
From-
meet every week? Do you all?
No.
Well, we meet-
It's gonna be a slow process, isn't
We
it?
meet monthly, and
We got a big job to do, don't we?
we
Yeah,
can't do all that.
volunteers.
We can't do all that stuff meeting once a month.
Right.
Now, we're in the law right now, so when we get money to implement the update of the master plan, hey, now we're getting into some serious discussion, okay? But right now, we're in the law, we're working on roads, we're working on drainage, we're working on zoning, and after that, we can work on, well, maybe before the end of the year, we'll talk about sewer, you see? And then we're just more from there. I guess that's up to the council as what we're gonna do, and what authority they give us, I don't know. I don't know, when you get into zoning, who's gonna do that? Is that gonna be the consulting company, or is it the council
Well,
gonna do it, or are we gonna do it?
I cannot overemphasize how important you are to give a consultant the direction that he needs to develop the plan. He's not going to come in and develop a plan that's probably without your input. He definitely needs what your thinking is, how you want to see a particular area of the parish develop. And
So they need your
what fashion.
vision.
And I
think,
really strongly feel that the local consultants in Louisiana, particularly in South Louisiana, probably would understand this area a lot better than probably somebody in Colorado. So, that's my personal opinion.
You know, the Colorado person had local people here on the ground doing it.
Well, they did have local.
That's what I'm
people.
saying.
When Winston done
They
it,
did.
they used the company out of Baton Rouge that Lynn
Right,
Maloney
right.
represented as a local company. And they were kind of the liaison, and she came and spoke to our first meeting, Miss Lynn did. Kind of give us some clues on how much money and what we needed to do, update the plan, because she wrote the plan. So, I think it's a good idea that the next council meeting, we're gonna mention, Killian and Port Vincent, and let the council be thinking about whether they want to be part of the master plan. You know, if they do, then we'll reach that point, then. Good
Well, you know,
idea.
that's a good
Yeah, good
point
thought.
too. You can have the councilmen that represent those districts discuss with those
Well, one of them back
municipalities.
there. Jared, don't you represent Port Vincent?
Yes,
So we're talking about Port
so I'm gonna
Vincent.
reach out to Port Vincent, reach out to the mayor.
When you,
bring something to Port
and
Vincent.
what they're talking about is when you get into land use restrictions and start doing the maps and stuff, the village of Port, is a village, right? Or do they want to join in with the parish on land use restrictions? Everything we talked about tonight about R50,
wanna
R90,
do
commercial, whatever, do they want to do that? And you have contact, don't you?
Yes, sir.
How do you, what were you gonna say? What were you saying, Gerald?
So I studied the whole program today as it was sent out to us. So, there's a lot of stuff in here that would help out rural area. There's some stuff that's not gonna help out the Watson area that would help us out. So I think the district's gotta be kind of separated out of what's gotta be done here.
That's right.
So.
The final
I think
product
that's
will be
good points
different.
On putting, bring something to Fort Vincent. And even people from the rural area could come, that we could bring to these meetings and give input. So,
So did you say that you would wanna reach out to, the mayor?
I'm gonna reach out to both of them.
Good.
To come to our next meeting, so they understand where we headed as a group.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like they want to participate, you know?
Tomorrow night, we have the Prairie Summit meeting, tomorrow night, so I'll bring this information to them, Ms. Rhonda Lobel tomorrow.
Okay.
Is that,
Awesome.
which one is that, Killian?
No, no,
Who's the more?
French settlement.
French Settlement Town Hall.
Okay, I forgot French Settlement, yeah, they don't have zoning. Is that a village or a town? French Settlement. What, how
French
they-
settlement,
How they classify, a village or town? A village? Just like Port Vincent and Killian? You gonna be down?
Town, I thought.
are those the two in your, district?
Yes, ma'am. The Kenyon would be Randy Gillette,
Okay,
What
and
kind
who,
of-
what else is in Randy's? Springfield?
Springfield, and, that's correct, Springfield.
Okay, and then, Mr. Bubba, you don't have any in yours, any municipalities. And who would be Albany?
I don't know, we call her. I might call her on the way home.
And how about Holden?
Mr. Mack.
You need for, what's the
They're not,
van?
they're not, they're not helping.
Good.
And how about
People
Livingston?
keep overlooking it.
That would be Jason Ard. I mean,
This
Jim.
isn't a-
Sorry, Jason.
Yeah.
And he has, they have something there, or does anybody know?
People that
The
appoint
town
those.
does. Is there any others
Or directly elected
in
voters.
Jeff Ard's district, or any other
Not
towns,
something
the
that-
municipalities?
that
Any other in,
not
in
want
Mr.
to
Mack's?
without public input.
Yeah. What about Mr.
You educate
Mack's
them on what you're doing.
district?
You can't just throw it out
And
there.
Mr.
You
Shane's?
gotta present it.
Shane Mack.
Oh, I'm sorry. Holden and Albany are in
Straight to
Shane
go,
Mack's.
enterprise, either.
Hey, guys.
What drives it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jerry. Thank you. We've
Okay.
learned so much from you and like to be one day.
I'd be willing to, if you
I
need
think this-
anything.
Mr. Jerry, this is a good start, but the finished product will be a
Oh,
lot
it's-
different.
you're a
Be lot
long
different
ways.
than this, 'cause I think Mr. Morris is clued in on something. One of the things that the guy,
You're still assembling at the starting line.
one of the things that the guy from, East Ascension come and told us that, their rural, if I remember right, was, who's still here from that meeting? You were. I think they used the 1, 2 acre, 3 acre rule down there for rural. So when Mr. Gerald, R50 is not gonna apply on rural, I wouldn't think. So it might, I don't think so. It's gonna be.
No,
1 acre.
what it is a designation. If you want to develop an R50, then you come to the planning commission and get it rezoned. You don't really establish that at this time. It's just a broad definition.
Sure,
If you want to develop an industrial park in a rural zone,
I guess
you
my-
would have to come to the planning commission to get approval.
My-
Right now, you could do that without any
Sure.
requirements. You don't have any
My
requirements.
point is that Walker's kind of compact, so 50 foot is very valuable to build a house, where in Coyell, it's an acre or more, you see. You could have 50. You
Right.
could, when the finished product, you might, I don't know.
Well,
But-
Some
at this
people
point,
may
but it
not
won't
want to
be-
cut
it won't be
grass.
like- It might include some of this, but not all of this.
Well, I think that what we're talking about starting with is not anything that has any specific dimensions or size or anything like that at this point, but getting a broad designation or definition of just what is residential, not a size,
Right.
just what is residential. Do you think that those definitions would come from Capital Region Planning, or do we just come up with them?
I think Capital Region can help you. I think, look at St. Tammany Parish, they may have some, farmland,
Right.
there's some broad definitions. But if someone wanted to develop a subdivision of apartments and then they go to their planning commission.
Then that, yeah, right. Is it a residential? And then
Yeah.
if it's something,
Right.
They
yeah.
would have rural, and West Feliciana, I guarantee you would have rural, wouldn't it? Would you think?
The
West
West
Feliciana.
Feliciana, yes.
Yeah, so we'll
There's
get
a
there.
lot of rural.
We will get hopefully we will get what they have, mesh it with what you got, and get some more, and present it to the council at the proper time.
Well, that's where if you hire a consultant, then he can consolidate all that and bring all that to y'all, You could give him some idea, these are your thinking, this is what you'd like to see. You'd like to pattern after, I don't know, St. Tammany, West Feliciana, someplace in Texas,
Yeah.
Germantown,
Mr. Jerry,
Tennessee.
can I call you tomorrow?
Not a good place, Foley,
You
Can I
can call
call
me anytime, yes.
I'll call you tomorrow, and we'll talk about St. Tammany and West Feliciana. Y'all have anything else for Mr. Jerry? Anybody, y'all have anything else for Mr. Jerry, Bubba, Gerald?
Do you have any questions? I'll be happy.
No, sir, but if you go back and read a lot of his notes that y'all use of Walker, it kind of spells out the trailers, for the rural, county, it can fit into rural areas too, if we have a trailer, park ordinance already, but it kind of fits in, so if somebody would want to develop one again somewhere in our area, they will come before the council.
That's right.
Or before the planning commission, and try to push it forward. So they got some good points in this brochure. I'd like to thank you for coming, sir.
All right.
And I'm very interested
Mr. Jerry, hold on.
Just to give you an
Hold it,
example,
sir.
last month at the planning commission, we had a request to rezone properties for a mobile home park. And it was rejected. The commissioner did not feel that was a compatible land use where it was being proposed, so,
Did you have a lot of objection from the residents around?
yes.
Okay. This gentleman wants to say, would you come to the podium, sir, and state your name? And do you have a question for us or Mr. Jerry?
Just a general question. My name is Jonathan Appleton. I live in Walker, or outside of Walker, rather. But the question was, you mentioned several different topics of rural, commercial, industrial, but I didn't hear anything about transportation, which is one of the major problems in this whole area. And Baton Rouge has over 400,000 people living in that area, or that travel through that area, and just yesterday morning, we're zoning for growth, and so we need to understand that our transportation is involved in that master plan, in development, and to my understanding, like the I-10, I-12 corridors, both have a maximum allowance of land usage, that they're able to do anything they want to do in that corridor for transportation purposes. And one of the things that I see there's a very big lack of in this area is understanding that not everybody has a car, and it's not safe to walk anywhere along any road in Livingston Parish. There's no shoulder, it's nothing but ditch, and I've seen, to my understanding, there's been at least 4 people killed in the last 7 years.
Right.
Just by walking down the road in this parish. And so we need to understand that we need sidewalks and proper drainage along the transportation
But
corridors.
do you have input on zoning? That's what we're talking
That's what
about.
my input is on the zoning, if we're gonna
But
include.
that's
the
land use
master plan,
restriction, but
include
highways,
transportation.
we're not, highways is not what we're talking about.
Well, we have highways in the parish.
I think what you're
We have-
talking about actually is the whole master plan,
Right.
which,
Well, yeah.
and you're saying that, that transportation and highways and all of that is a vital, important part of it. And absolutely it is, and I'm not sure if this is the first time you've had an opportunity to attend our meeting, but we have already, and Gerald mentioned it earlier, gone to the council, and they've approved a budget for us on some roads, looking forward instead of reacting, trying to move forward. And as we plan a master plan, absolutely incorporating transportation and roads and opportunities and concerns and whatever. So we absolutely are looking at that, as well as other drainage and sewer and, other things that all go into making it I loved what Mr. Jerry said, to improve the health, safety, and welfare for the residents.
Right.
And that goes into that.
Well, everything you said is important, and my point was that Mr. Jerry was here to talk about zoning,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we can talk about anything you want to talk about when we get off of this subject, okay? If it ain't got anything to do
I
with
just
zoning.
didn't
That
hear
it's-
transportation mentioned
In the list.
any-
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
We understand and that is a
Okay.
major concern
All
for
right.
the citizens
Yes, sir.
in Livingston Parish.
Thank you.
Mr. Jerry, thank you, for coming and sharing your vast knowledge with us. We thank you,
Again,
and we're gonna call you.
okay.
Yeah, we look forward to work, we're thankful for what you've given us today. You know, I think our heads might be spinning, we're not sure which way to go, like you
We might
say.
even ask you to come back one
Yeah.
day. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're thankful that you didn't take retirement seriously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good information. Let me cover, item number 4. I'll give you all an update on the Juban widening and the roundabout at Florida Boulevard. Initially, the roundabout at Florida Juban was a project, a standalone project. It was $4.5 million. It wasn't part of the Juban widening. So they were gonna build it first, and then they're gonna do the widening of Juban from Florida down to past LA Dental Clinic and tie it in with Juban Crossing. But because of a glitch with communication between DEMCO and Energy Transmission didn't get the information to order poles. The poles to do the roundabout at Juban in Florida haven't been ordered yet. And the project manager for DOTD told me that last week from my property. So they're gonna order the poles. It takes 32 weeks to manufacture them, then they'll deliver them, but they can't change them out in the summer because of the heavy transmission load on the power line. Or the heat, so it's gotta be November, December, January. But they're moving the utility lines on widening the Juban as we speak. Really, today they were installing a 6-inch gas main in front of my property. Another 4-inch on the other side coming. They're gonna move AT&T fiber and landline to cable and Cox, and then the contractor is gonna start on Juban widening before the roundabout on Florida. So that's gonna start first, and that will start midsummer. I just thought y'all might want to know that.
Yeah.
That's
No,
good,
Thank you
that's,
for the
Thank you.
update.
So,
Thank you.
Mr. Burns,
Julie?
that's good
so
information.
the Juban widening, how far does it go south?
It goes south of LA Dental Clinic. There's a roundabout going right there in the LA Dental Clinic's center, isn't it? LA Dental Center, I believe. Taking part of their parking lot, there's a big roundabout going there. And they're going maybe a little bit south of that. That's far as they're going on the Juban widening project.
So nothing on the south side of the.
Not at this present time. We've asked the council to do a resolution on that. You came in after that. Mr. Bubba was on that. Anyway, the parish council approved a resolution to go all the way down 4-lane all the way to Brown Road. 1-point-something miles.
Sorry to ask this, but Buddy Ellis is fixing to get redone by the MOP, correct?
They getting a roundabout there.
NPO.
So, do you know when that's going to take place, that roundabout? Or is that something I would have to ask the engineer?
I tell you what, I can make some phone calls.
You don't have to tonight. I just got some concerned citizens about whenever they close the bridge, everybody's trying to go out Juban Road. So,
I will call the project manager and he can refer me on to whoever has that project down there, that project engineer. The engineer is doing that project and we'll find out, okay?
thank you, sir.
Do you have a copy of the resolution and the list that we gave to the council that they approved? Do you have that? He may not have that.
I
Sandy,
think so.
Sandy
I
can
think
get you a
so.
copy of that. Oh, you have it? Oh, okay. Because I know that the 4-lane Juban Road south of I-12 to Brown Road is number 11 on that list.
You have a copy of the resolution?
I do.
And it includes the list,
Yes.
the roads.
Yes, it's Exhibit A.
And Albert Bryson, but I didn't see how far it went south to Juban Road. It really concerns us because once they take out the bridge on Buddy Ellis Road, It's gonna put all the traffic going out on Juban, which is no red light, all there is a stop sign there, and people worry about the safety issues that's gonna happen where.
Is that the same
there is
bridge
a red light.
that was out?
No, there's no-
Is that the same bridge that was out forever,
Yes,
that just
that's the one.
opened? The
That
one
is-
that goes to Walker South? You're talking about
That
that?
is the same
The same
bridge
bridge?
that Julie and I and Joe Harrell and a few more met with Mike Drummer way back yonder and asked him to put that road, that bridge back in.
Well, we
In
had
that me- In that meeting, he made a phone call and told the planning, the project, I guess the DPW director, well, put it back in. And it was in.
Well, we also met with the DOTD,
Coyle Creek.
manager or whatever it was for District 62 out there.
We sure did. We sure did.
So we understand
and
having
we had
not
our-
having that open
Yeah, but
is
they
a
came from Hammond,
concern.
didn't they?
Yeah, that's who we met with.
Anyway, that's about Juban widening. I'm on the Juban extension, which is technically our #1 project. After Cook Road. Cook Road is fully funded. Mr. Buddy Mincy called me about a week ago and asked me then what was the #1 project, and I told him Juban extension. He said, okay, I'll get back with you. He told me later he was in a DOTD meeting, and him and
Rogers
the
Post.
senator-elect Rogers Pope, and they told DOTD that was the #1 project in Livingston Parish. So they got it on the list with DOTD. Based upon what you guys on the council done, you see? See what y'all started? Well, y'all did too. Y'all did.
I don't know anybody who's been pushing for that for the last 4 or 5 years. Yeah, I know, but I'm talking about on our end.
So do you know if it went to MPO? What is the situation with that? When you say that they have it on their list or that they
No,
talked to
they was
DOTD?
This is DOTD.
I know.
He was in a meeting, him and Mr. Rogers was in a meeting with DOTD about road projects in Livingston Parish, and that's why he called me, to find out which was #1, and I told him, and he said, okay. But we did talk later, and, he did ask for a copy of the resolution, and we'll get to it, we'll get it done. I did report to the council last month about, what our update was working with Mr. Mark Harrell and getting the grants, and we give him a copy of the white papers that we submitted, and, council didn't have any questions, I don't know why. Y'all didn't have no questions, Mr. Buck? Hey. The meeting-
Now, you've had time to sleep on it. You have any now?
Y'all was probably tired and want to get out of there, huh?
It was a very long meeting, if I
We
recall.
tried to create a planning commission back in the '80s, early '80s, when I was on the police jury. And we thought we were doing good with it until all the developers, realtors, everybody else came in and got the vote just to shut it down. So that's what happened back then.
Well-
It would be in this shape today if they went ahead and passed it, you know. And back then, is another thing I learned. Back in that day, Houston did not have any zoning whatsoever. It was just planning. And that's how they got everything the way they got.
Wow. That's amazing, huh? They've come a long way.
Oh, yeah.
Now they got blue phone. Blue for 40 years. I'm through with old business. Anybody want to bring anything else up? That somebody want to talk about?
Well, I guess the only thing, I don't know if I have it here, but we had a few of us had some of the waterway issues on our mind and had seen some news reports and publications. And so I think Sandy has a copy for everybody that y'all can just take, we're not, gonna go into any of it, but it's just something for you to look at. I know that's all for you, I think she has, I think.
Y'all have some? Do you have?
It's a set.
Or maybe, is that mine?
That's all.
I gave you yours back. Yeah, I just, but, Gerald
This
looks
is
a
what
little
I asked you to
different.
do today. Okay, great. I will read that when I get home.
Thank you, Sandy.
Gerald just didn't, I don't know if it had everything, because it just looks different from what you're handing out now. It's, no, it doesn't have a color scheme.
I have,
I gave them a
Oh, here
different one
it is.
too.
No, it's just a bigger, out of
Do
order.
y'all have this one too? Oh, okay, everybody's got the same, the right thing, okay.
I got a,
So just something, it's just information.
That's the same stuff I got on Gary Graves,
But I think you
Okay.
said that you had spoken with Randy Delight and that
Yeah.
some of this may not be accurate.
Yeah, it doesn't look the way it's written, he said. He's gotten a lot of phone calls on it. The way it's written, it looks like they dredging the whole mouth of a meet in the
Blind.
Blind River, the way it's written.
Well, maybe, if and when we take this up,
Yeah.
we could have him come, because I know he has been working hard.
He said he'd been blowing his phone up with it.
Yeah, and so he might
Well,
be able to report to us on that when we get into some drainage
we'll
stuff.
schedule one of our meetings up to, I guess, midsummer or something like this.
Okay, that's
Then we
fine.
can get the whole meeting.
He said they have the money there for that.
This issue along with other drainage stuff, maybe. I guess, if we don't have any other business, I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Got a motion?
You have one?
Second.
Got a second?
Nope. Second.
All those in favor of adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Nay. Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.